On daf 4 of Eruvin, we get what seems like a pretty simple statement. We're talking about the size of a mikvah. So a mikvah is 1 amma by 1 amma by 3 ammas. An amma is the size of your arm from your fingertips to your elbow. That's an amma. So it's 3 cubic amot, no big deal. And that we say is the measure of 40 se'ah. And 40 se'ah can be reduced to a certain number of egg bulks that they had back then. But a number of years ago, we ran into a problem when someone started doing the math in one of these Beit Midrashes and started thinking about, well, if we think about how much the average egg has in volume, and we think about the average sized man and how much that average man's average amma is, then 40 se'ah doesn't come out to be 3 cubic amot of water. The measures just don't add up. People thought about that and they said, so it seems like one of two things happened. Either people have gotten bigger or eggs have gotten smaller. Now, archaeologically, it's not even a question. We know that people are getting bigger. You can go look at old suits of armor for these big, giant, studly men from a few hundred years ago, and they were pitsky little guys. And we also know that, we have ancient eggs that we found that have been fossilized. We can see they're roughly the same size, if even a bit smaller. So, the question doesn't seem to be that much of a question. It seems to be pretty clear, except that we have this whole idea that the generations are going downward. And so people are often uncomfortable saying that, maybe people have gotten bigger. Maybe the people who lived back then weren't as big as we are now. So they concluded instead that eggs must have gotten smaller. And this is actually where we get a lot of the normative halakha today that says that, you have to eat an olive bulk's worth of matzah, and people are, shoving down huge quantities of matzah that would equal like an olive like this big. Why are we getting such huge quantities? It's coming from this whole idea that, things back then used to be bigger than they are now. And we don't have a lot of archaeological evidence for that, but it's kind of a principle. That's not the only position that is held in the Orthodox world, but it is the more normative one. And it's something that really got me thinking a number of years ago. We, as you might have guessed, don't hold with the normative idea. Once we started learning these questions, I actually turned to the rabbi who taught this to me, Rabbi Fink, and I said to him, do I have to hold by the kind of the normative standards that say that all of these measures used to be much bigger in the old days than they are now? And he says, because I said, the other position seems to make a lot more sense to me. And he turned to me and he said, Dave, you're asking me the wrong question. Don't ask me how you're allowed to hold by the more lenient opinion. Ask me if you're chayav to. And I quoted Rav Moshe Feinstein that said, if we have two opinions that are acceptable and one makes sense to you and one doesn't, then you really should hold by the opinion that makes more sense to you. And this all comes from this Gemara that we see today that talks about the size of a mikvah and how much volume that should equal. And it doesn't quite line up with today's modern measures.